and Luciano Oliveira, Oliveira Noyers. Today is Wednesday, 12:30 Rio de Janeiro time, January the 29th, and we are here for one more live stream. Let's check if we got some of our usual friends here at the stream. Let me take a look. So far, no participation in the chat window. And remember, if you are here with us, you have a priority over others. Of course, you can, suggest topics of your interest for us to discuss live here in our channel. And maybe start by sharing some news. I'm not sure if you're following up, but we have like a very hot topic going on, which is the deportation of Brazilians. Many Brazilians being deported from the United States by the Trump administration, and this has been the case for a long time. It's not something new, but at least from the Brazilian media perspective, the new perspective is that Brazilians. I think it was on Sunday they came to Brazil in an airplane with a broken AC system. So people were really uncomfortable. They started to complain a lot, and the U.S. immigration started to kind of be more forceful in terms of containing the Brazilians, and eventually they end up having a physical altercation. There was a physical altercation between the immigration in the airplane and the Brazilians. So some Brazilians, they got beat, right? And you could see some marks of I don't know if it was one of those bastons that they use to hit people. So there was a big polemic or a big hot topic in Brazil on Monday, and actually even like yesterday. Today I'm taking a look here at the news, and I cannot see any news today. So it looks like is no longer news. I'm not sure if our live stream is working correctly. I don't see anyone participating here. So hopefully our equipment is working as it should. At least from the YouTube platform, it shows like it's working. And so we are using the stream that was scheduled for today. And let's continue and hope that people are being able to access our live stream. Another point or another topic of interest is that the US dollar is not as strong as it was against the Brazilian real, the Brazilian currency, like a couple of weeks ago. So it looks like the exchange rate is becoming more balanced, if you will. But we still see a lot of activity, from U.S. citizens, sometimes even Brazilians living in the United States, interested in purchasing real estate in Brazil. But we reached a record of $1 US being exchanged for six reais and 20 cents of real, and today, at least based on what I see over here, it looks like it's like more like 5 reais and 80 cents. So that's a substantial reduction in terms of the purchase power of the US dollar, but still much better than it was just like a few months ago, right? So that's why, like I said, despite this kind of a substantial drop. The real estate acquisition activity is still, very present in our daily activities. And again, if you are around, if you have any topics of your interest, we can discuss over here. And let's see if we have any questions here in our backlog. Okay. All right. So I heard that in order for U.S. citizens to marry in Brazil, there is a lot of red tape and bureaucracy. I thought I would be better off marrying in the United States. However, my Brazilian fiancé cannot travel to the United States. Any ideas? Yes. So that's a common question. There are, only two routes. One route is for you to, bite the bullet and marry in Brazil. We have a service here at the firm. We sell a block of hours, and you can basically use this block of hours to get advisory in terms of the documents. There are many documents that you need to get an apostille in the United States. There is a need for a sworn translation in Brazil later on. A third step of recording these documents at the so-called RTD registry, right? So it is like a painful process, but as long as you have like advisory and you just keep moving those papers, eventually you're gonna get to the point in which you can marry in Brazil. Okay, now this is usually better, particularly if you're gonna buy properties in Brazil. If you have, for instance, a plan to retire in Brazil, so marrying in Brazil is going to be very helpful from an immigration perspective for the American citizen, okay? And if the Brazilian, like in your case, if the Brazilian cannot travel to the U.S., let's say the Brazilian tried to apply for a tourist visa and was not able to get it, once you have the marriage certificate in Brazil, you are able to apply for the Brazilian to be able to go to the United States under either the K1. The K1 is the so-called fiancé visa. And naturally, there's the green card for a spouse of a U.S. citizen, right? So those two routes would be available for you as soon as you have a marriage certificate in Brazil. Okay. Now the other route is for you to marry remotely. Okay. The only state that we know that is doing this kind of remote marriage so far is Utah. Okay, and we have many clients who have used the Utah route. So basically, Utah is making available like marriage through a video conference. So in theory, the U.S. citizen could be, in Brazil, or the U.S. citizen could be in New York. It does not matter where the U.S. citizen is located. And the Brazilian party naturally is going to be in Brazil, right? Because the Brazilian party cannot travel to the United States in this scenario. And then they get married through this video conference marriage. Of course, you're not going to have a Brazilian marriage certificate, but then there is a set of steps that you can take to obtain the Brazilian marriage certificate based on the U.S. Marriage certificate. And of course, it's not like you're marrying again. It is just a matter of following steps. So a Brazilian marriage certificate is going to be issued as a mirror of the information in your U.S. marriage certificate. And with this Brazilian marriage certificate, then you have a plethora of paths for immigration for both of you, meaning you as the U.S. citizen to stay in Brazil to get permanent residency, and the Brazilian to go to the United States under either a fiancé visa or the traditional green card based on family ties to a U.S. citizen. All right, so I hope that was helpful. We have Chauvin O'Connor. Hi, Chauvin. So good to see you back. I'm really glad to see you again, Chauvin. Chauvin, hey, I wanted to hire you to buy a house, but I'm looking for the house first. I finally found one, but they don't have a escritura public deed. Yeah, Chauvin. Yeah, so Chauvin, listen. We have a realtor in the firm, so this realtor could maybe get a list of requirements for whatever you are looking for, Chauvin, and she could, get you a short list. That would be an alternative for you to get started, right? And you don't need to use our service. Like it's an additional source of properties for you to consider. Now, if you're considering buy one that doesn't have a public deed, it's usually challenging because first thing is like it's difficult for you to pinpoint the chain of ownership, Chauvin, and meaning that like maybe the person says I'm the owner, but the person is not really the owner, and if you buy from the person and the real owner shows up later, you're basically out of luck, right? You chose to buy a property without an escritura and public deed. Now, if a Brazilian party is doing that, right, and this is very common in Florianopolis, for instance, like we had a couple like from California. There was like the U.S. citizen and a Brazilian slash U.S. citizen, and they were married, and they decided to buy a property just like this without the escritura in Florianopolis. But the Brazilian party, he had relatives in the island, right? So they could go there and investigate on the spot, and not only like in a single shot, but they did like a couple of months of investigation, and they could tell that the sellers were the sellers, and the sellers had been living there for 30 years, right? So there was a reasonable acquisition. Now they had we had, right, because we were working together, a difficult time to allowing the monies to come from the United States, because whenever you tell the bank that you're gonna buy property in Brazil, the bank is gonna ask, guess what, the public deed, and if you don't have the public deed, the bank is gonna say, listen, I don't know what you're buying, but from my perspective, it's not real estate, right? So we had to bring the money based on a different type of track for money transfer, which was the so-called availability. This is a technical term in Brazil, Brazil's currency exchange, technical lingo. And like we were able to bring the money, but it was very painful, all right, and more like an exception. So unless Chauvin, unless you have like a Brazilian partner, I would not recommend you to buy something without a public deed. Another perspective is like if you have a lot of money, right, and you don't mind, maybe you're gonna buy it, and there is a 5% chance that something terrible like you buying from the incorrect seller happening. That could be a potential mindset for this type of transaction. But usually we do not handle those transactions, Chauvin, because of course you may be thinking, well, I'm hiring you, to avoid any problems, and that's why when you hire us, like we say, well, you're not gonna work with this. Let's move you to something safer. Okay, Chauvin. But yes, we would be glad to work with you on the real estate transaction. We are increasing our team as we speak. We just have a new lawyer at the firm, and he's specializing in like reviewing, contracts and real estate paperwork. So we are expanding our capability in this area, and we can certainly assist you. All right, Chauvin. So consider scheduling a consultation, or if you just need like a 10-minute courtesy call, we can also schedule for you to learn more about our services, Chauvin. William Frost, so good to see you, William. Hi, Luciano, how is it going? £1, 7 reais and 26 cents. Pretty good for us to travel in Brazil now. When I was in Brazil last year, it was 6.4, I think. Yes, William, no, for sure. Listen, the U.S. dollar and the British pound, they have increased in purchase power when compared to Brazil. There was a drop for the U.S. dollar recently. I think something like 2.5%, but it's still like substantially better than it was like 6 months ago. Now, one thing for you to consider, Eden, is that when you are in Brazil, if that's the rate that you remember, maybe that's the rate that you've been getting, like when exchanging the rate and whatever you have as a reference, like the £1 buying R$7.26, that's not what you get, right? You probably know that. I usually recommend, for people who just arrive in Brazil, they need cash. I tell them, listen, use Bradesco, just go to a Bradesco ATM. They are the best when it comes to compatibility between US bank cards and the ATM, right? There is no better bank. Like I hear that Banco do Brasil or Itaú sometimes they work. Listen, I tested with US cards. It's not consistent. The only bank in Brazil that's going to consistently give you cash with you using US cards is going to be Bradesco. And Bradesco, they're going to charge a spread, I think around 13%, believe it or not, right? Like, so if you're talking about 726, let's see, 726 times, times 0.87, right? That's a 13% spread. Guess what? Bradesco would pay you R$6 and 32 cents for a pound, right, William? So just this heads up that whenever you are like in Brazil getting currency out of an ATM, currency exchange is much worse. But maybe you were using something else to exchange. If you was Wise, naturally Wise is going to use a pretty small, markup. They basically retain, like for transfers up to 10,000 US dollars, they retain no more than 1% in spread, right? So it's a huge discrepancy, right? Like when you get cash on an ATM, 13%. If you're using TransferWise, you're going to pay roughly 1% of spread, right? Just 12%, of a discrepancy, and it is what it is, right? All right, Chauvin, okay, thank you. I won't pursue it then. What is the name of the realtor in your firm that can help me find a house in Florianopolis? So you see, Chauvin, I didn't know it was Florianopolis, right? But I said this type of, situation is super common in Florianopolis, right? And I didn't know it was Florianopolis. But I'm going to write her name over here is Camila Sonia, right? Like, so she is Camila Sonia. She is licensed as a realtor, and she can help you with the property in Florianopolis. All right, Chauvin, there you go. You can send an email. And by the way, you can send an email. Let me write down her email, csaunier@oliveiralawyers.com. Okay, there you go, Chauvin. All right, Dragon, do I need to buy a round-trip flight for the digital nomad residence? Dragon, usually not, all right? Usually you don't need. And the usually is because like we know the exact standards of the Brazilian immigration when we are applying in Brazil, and they don't usually request. But I need to say usually because they have a discretion to ask for additional stuff. Another situation in which you're gonna need like a round trip flight is gonna be when you apply for an extension, right? So if you're coming from a country in which you can apply for an extension, if you have a good reason for asking for a resident, because nowadays it's not as automatic as it was under Bolsonaro's administration, they are going to ask you for the round trip. Okay, so that's why I tell you, usually you don't need. So for most clients, they start working with us before they actually come to Brazil, like a month before their date of entry. We organize documents and we try to file within 30 days of them arriving in Brazil, right? Some people, they like to play with the timeline, say, well, but I can get an extension, I'm going to apply down the road and this and that. My recommendation is usually don't do it. And without the so-called resident card, right, the R&M card, you're not going to be able to really enjoy Brazil as you should. Once you have this card over here, I hope you guys can see on your screen. Once you have this card, you're gonna have access like to a regular bank account, right? You're gonna have access to a regular cell phone line. You're gonna be able, if you are interested in, to do something more long term in terms of renting an apartment. Okay, so don't postpone, don't delay. The quality of your experience in Brazil is going to be lagging, is going to be lacking a lot if you don't have this card. And that's why I usually recommend that people work with us in order to file their application right after arriving in Brazil. All right, Dragon. All right. Phew, I'm glad I have Wise. Yeah, Dragon. Yes, listen, I use Wise. Okay, I love Wise, but Wise is not the answer like for large transfers. Wise is the answer for like smaller transfers, because Brazil says, listen, up to $10,000, I'm gonna allow operators such as Wise to participate in the currency exchange market. But above this ceiling, you need to have a fully fledged compliance, meaning documents explaining why you send the money, people actually reviewing those documents, and then Wise they do have like partnerships with Brazilian banks, but in my opinion there is a large disconnection between Wise customer service and the bank, and it's usually a hit or a miss. Sometimes I hear from people, listen, I used Wise for $100,000 and it was just fine. Sometimes people are going to get in touch with us after spending a couple of months with Wise without being able to release their money, and that's really worrisome, because sometimes you're buying real estate property, and if you don't pay on time, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have a huge fee to pay, a huge penalty to pay to the sellers. So no good. I don't recommend Wise for large amounts, but I use myself for small amounts. All right, Dragon. So yes, Wise is pretty good. Chiovan, thank you. You're so helpful. What time is the live stream on Sundays? Chiovan, so on Wednesdays we do it at 12:30. On Sundays we do it at 3:30 p.m. We're not gonna have one on this Sunday though, right? Like we had for the last couple of Sundays, we had the live stream, but we're not gonna have it for this one. But we always keep our schedule on the channel. Okay, let me see if I can show you guys how this looks like. So if you go to YouTube, and then you just search for Oliveira Lawyers. You're searching for Oliveira Lawyers, and then you click on our channel, right? You click on our channel and you go to live. You're gonna see here like this next live stream. So this one is scheduled for February the 5th, and you're gonna click on notify me. You click on notify me, notification is on. So it means you're not gonna miss the live stream. But this one being scheduled for February the 5th, you see that there is nothing scheduled for Sunday. So it means we are escaping on this one. All right, Chauvin, I hope that was helpful. Andrew, oh, good to see you over here, Andrew. Hi, Dr. Oliveira. My Brazilian wife would like to invest the funds in government bonds, as interest rates are pretty good in Brazil. Would you recommend the Tesouro Selic? Andrew, first thing, if your Brazilian wife, if she's not a tax resident, I don't recommend you to do so, okay? Those investments, they are available for tax residents, right? Like meaning if your wife does file in both countries, right? Like if she does file, let's say in the United States and in Brazil, that's absolutely fine. She can invest in Tesouro Selic, she can invest in XP. XP for us is like the number one a source of, it's like our E-Trade, right? That's called the XP. And every Brazilian, not every Brazilian, but most Brazilians do invest in XP. They have like really nice funds. But let's say if she's not filing in Brazil and if she happens to invest in those things, that would be a factor for the Brazilian Revenue Service to consider her as a tax resident, right? Like the Brazilian Revenue Service, they use different factors to assess if a person is a tax resident or not. And two things we see, like Brazilians who live abroad doing wrong all the time, right? They don't file in Brazil. Sorry, I apologize for the balloons. So two things we see Brazilians doing wrong all the time. Like they say, well, I'm not a tax resident in Brazil. I don't file taxes. I've been outside of the country for 20, 30 years. And then they still have a regular bank account and they invest in stocks, right? So if they are caught, particularly if they send the money to buy a house and it is going to, attach the money entering the country to their tax IDs, the Brazilian immigration is going to say, listen, what's going on here, right? Like this person doesn't file, this person has a bank account, is investing in stocks, and says that, they are not like tax residents. That's not how it works, okay? So just a heads up, Andrew, and make sure you and your wife, you guys have a good handle of your tax residency status in Brazil. But let's say if she is a tax resident, meaning she is paying taxes in both countries, yes, by all means, I do recommend the Tesouro Selic. Is a great investment, right? No question about it, Andrew. Thank you for the question. All right, what else we have? We have Dragon. In worst case scenario, I could buy a flight out separately to satisfy this, and I will be hiring at least 6 weeks before I fly. Yes, absolutely, Dragon. You don't need to worry, all right? If you're going to use our service, just, sit back and relax, all right? We're going to take good care of you. Not sure if you guys been following, right? We're very proud of our Rio de Janeiro office. They are just amazing. They are just amazing people, right? Like they do a wonderful job. Sometimes, people when they have consultations with me, they say, well, I would like to work with you. I say, listen, if you work with me, you're going to be actually, you're not going to be in the best hands you could possibly get. This is our review for Rio de Janeiro, right? So we have 119 reviews, and they come all the time, right? Like this one, a day ago, 4 days ago, 4 days ago, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. They are all people immigrating to Brazil, right? So our Rio de Janeiro team takes a wonderful care of, people just like you, all right? So if you're going to hire our service, that's my recommendation for you, Dragon. Sit back and relax, all right? That's how it's going to work. All right. Ivan, Croatia. Welcome, Ivan. Maybe you are here for the first time. Not sure, maybe second time, Ivan. Let me know. I'm someone who blogs about the Brazilian bureaucracy, and I love learning about your laws. Although I'm not a lawyer, your website is very good to learn and very professional. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much, Ivan. So let's please collaborate. Like, let us know. Do you have a blog you would like to share? If you want to share about your blog here in our live stream, you are welcome to do so, Ivan. Very glad to hear you blog about Brazilian bureaucracy. It's good to have someone else talking about Brazilian bureaucracy, because sometimes I feel like I am, sharing about it too much, right? I always say, like red tape and bureaucracy in Brazil across the board. And sometimes I say, maybe people are going to think I'm just, trying to sell my services, but it is what it is, right? For any of you who have been doing something in Brazil, right, on a legal or business basis, you know how it is, okay? Really nice to meet you, Ivan. Dragon, yes, WISE is not the long-term solution, but it does help in a pinch. I will be getting a Brazilian account once I'm living there. I'm not going to be dealing with real estate at this early stage. Yes, Dragon, absolutely. Real estate is usually a solution for down the road. It's something more longer term. We have so many clients. They start just like you know, like they want to try out. They try out. If they really like it, which is usually the case, eventually they're gonna say, "Listen, I don't want to keep renewing this thing like every year. Like, how can I stay longer, right?" And that's when the real estate is usually considered, because you know Brazil still have right. Brazil still has the golden visa, the so-called golden visa, meaning you can achieve a permanent residency and potentially even citizenship down the road by purchasing real estate. Many countries, particularly in Europe, like they are closing this door. Portugal did close this door. It was between 2023 and 2024 last year. They still have the golden visa. You know, like you need to invest at least 500,000 euros, and you cannot buy real estate, right? So Brazil, a completely different ball game, right? Like the problem with Portugal is that Portugal is such a tiny, such a small country, right? And Brazil is the opposite. Brazil is huge, right? Uh, as you probably know, like Brazil is just bigger than the United States. If you don't consider Alaska and Hawaii, Brazil is bigger than the United States, right? If you think this through, because those things they are not really part of the like main United States unit. They are like separate geographically from the land of the. They say like the continental United States, right? And another comparison, like Brazil is bigger than twice the size of the European Union. So if you get the 26 or 27 countries of the European Union, if you take that area and you multiply by two, is still not enough comparable to Brazil, right? Like so, Brazil is like has continental dimensions, and we don't have a problem with foreign citizens buying real estate. So you're welcome to do it, and it's bringing a lot of money to Brazil. So even the new administration, which is not exactly right pro U.S. citizens, is tougher on immigration. They are still pretty happy with the golden visa. All right, Dragon. So yes, there you go. Ivan, Dragon, you can open a CDE in Banco Rendimento. It's an account for us who have CPF but don't have RNM. It has PIX and Boleto payments and also bank deposit investment option. There you go, Ivan. All right, Dragon is thanking Ivan for the sharing. Nola Zach, hello, thanks for all the info again. Thank you for showing up, Nola Zach. It's good to have you over here. Oi, Luciano, how can one buy an apartment in Rio without having residency? Nola Zach, so you don't need residency in Brazil to buy an apartment, all right? So particularly for Rio de Janeiro, Rio de Janeiro is such a unique city. Yesterday I was discussing with a friend of mine who's also from Rio de Janeiro. Who's also from Brazil, and he's from São Paulo, and he was sharing some of the things that are pretty common to me, but they were so weird to him as someone from São Paulo. And I was saying, listen, Rio de Janeiro is just like another planet. It's not like another country in Brazil. Is another planet. Such distinction you're gonna find in terms of the customs, like the reality and so on. So in Rio de Janeiro, from this perspective, the state tries to make it easier for foreign citizens to buy. It's one of the few states in which they are not going to require a birth certificate for you to buy a property, right? So if you buy a property in São Paulo, if you buy a property like in Santa Catarina, in Bahia, in Ceará, just think any state. You're going to either need a marriage certificate or a birth certificate. In Rio de Janeiro, if you present yourself as single, they say, I'm fine with it. And by the way, you don't need to present a birth certificate, right? So they go out of their way to make it easier for foreign citizens to buy stuff and buy, real estate, of course. And so you don't need a residency, all right, no, Lazak. And of course, if you need, like a short list of properties, that's something we are providing as we speak. And we have like a specific service for this purpose. Like you make a small deposit with our realtor. She goes out there and she builds like a short list for you according to your specifics. And then you can visit the properties, or like she can go herself, or have someone doing like a video within the apartment, so you can see what's going on and see if it is of your interest. And there you go. All right, no need for residency. Dragon, what materials documents would I need to resubmit for each digital nomad residency renewal? What would the process be like? Dragon, so you need to apply for a renewal before the actual expiration of the current digital nomad residency. Our recommendation is that you start this process a couple of months before the expiration, so there is enough time for you to gather the documents, apply, and get the renewal. And basically, the documents are going to be renewed criminal records. And if you've been in Brazil, we are able to issue criminal records from Brazil. They are going to ask you for state level, federal level. We can get them remotely, so you don't need to worry about that. I apologize about the balloons. I'm going to turn off this feature right after this live stream. So we spoke about the criminal records. There is also a need for the letter of verification saying that you are working, and the bank statement. If you're working with the 18,000 sitting in a bank account, a single bank statement. So these are the 3 documents you're going to need. There are a few forms additional, but they are more like busy paperwork. Those 3 documents, Dragon, they are the main ones. Okay. All right. Okay, Ivan, I definitely suggest hiring a professional for these services. Thank you for the support, Ivan. I did the most myself due to curiosity, but I don't recommend. It's a headache and something a professional can do for you. I appreciate the support and the words, Ivan. William Frost, I know it is insane how big Brazil is, bigger than most people think. I think it's also 48% of the South American continent. Yeah, that's probably right, William. It's huge, right? And, there are some things in Brazil difficult for you to believe, even if you see with your own eyes. One of the things for me, it was the Amazon River, right? The Amazon River, it was an absolutely shocking experience. My wife, she's from Manaus, right? Like from the state of Amazonas. And the first time I traveled over there, I never seen the Amazon River. So the first time I saw it, it was unbelievable. Because when you are staying on one margin, you kind of are unable to see the other margin. I mean, it's just like you are, looking at the ocean. Believe it or not, it's something unbelievable. And then, one of the things we did over there, her uncle, he had like a speedboat, and then they wanted to visit a specific beach. We call it beach. It's like a river margin, but we still call it beach. And so they said that there is a really nice beach, across the river. And, our uncle is going to take our family. It was a large boat. And but if I tell you how long it took for us to cross the river in a speedboat, is hard to believe. It took us about an hour to cross the river. Okay, an hour to cross the Amazon River from one margin to the other margin using a speedboat, right? So it's pretty difficult for you to fathom that until you are over there. And Brazil has so many other interesting things. I'm just sharing one that even to me as a Brazilian, it was pretty shocking when I saw for the first time. All right. Dragon, I definitely hiring them. Their track record is strong. I'm just taking advantage of the opportunity to ask questions in real time at the stage outside of consultation. Absolutely, Dragon. And we are pretty happy to have both of you over here. Without questions, without participation, our live stream will not be possible. or it would be pretty boring for sure. So I appreciate your presence. All right, William Frost. The above link is from the city of Goiânia when I was visiting some friends last year. Right. I'm not sure if I see the link over here. William, maybe the above link, yeah. Maybe it doesn't show, like maybe there is something on YouTube, William, like, kind of deleting or removing the links. But if you tell me what you want to show, I can, of course, share from my side. Goiânia is pretty nice. I went to Goiânia a lot when I was younger. When I was a kid, I used to travel with my father to the state of Goiás. For those of you who don't know, like Goiás is more like a center state in Brazil. There is a lot of like agricultural activities. A lot of like farms, and my father, he was into like buying and selling farms. Like, so there was like my childhood. I would travel with my father a lot, right? Like, I mean, we would go to Goiânia, we would stay in Goiânia, Araguaína, Natividade. These are some small cities by Goiânia. Another interesting fact about Goiânia, William, and you probably know about that. Goiânia is pretty close to Brasilia, right? Brasilia is Brazil's capital. And so last time I was in Brasilia, it was, I think, 3 weeks ago. And then I was, driving with a Uber driver. The Uber driver said, well, I'm actually from Goiânia, right? And I said, well, you come here every day? He said, no, I'm actually working in Goiânia. But if I have a trip from Goiânia to Brasilia, then I remain in Brasilia until I have another trip from Brasilia to Goiânia, right? And it's roughly like an hour and a half if you're driving, in a good speed. It could be like 2 hours if you are more a peaceful driver like me. It would be more like a 2 hour and 10 minutes. But yes, Goiânia and Brasilia, they're like, kind of close by. Goiânia is more like business oriented. Brasilia naturally is just like the political heart, the political center of Brazil. Yuri, welcome Yuri. Yuri Travis, hey, what are your favorite cities to live in Brazil? All right, Yuri. So this is very personal, Yuri, and of course, I understand this. You're asking my favorite, so I'm gonna tell you. I love, like Rio de Janeiro, okay, with all the problems you can possibly imagine, and there are many. I still think that the net result is amazing for Rio de Janeiro. So Rio de Janeiro is probably my number one choice when it comes like to big cities, okay. Second option would be, like smaller cities in the state of Ceará. Ceará is a state, is just a coastal state, just like Rio de Janeiro, but it's far away into the northeast area, almost north of Brazil. And, the advantage I see for Ceará is like, the cost of living is substantially lower. Pace of life is better, for your health. Less problems, less of the problems you see often in Rio de Janeiro, okay? And, I just love the food over there as well. So Ceará, probably my second choice, okay? So first choice, Rio de Janeiro, second choice, and I can even tell you, it's actually the city of Beberibe. This is the city of Beberibe. I'm not sure if I'm gonna see like exciting. Morro Branco is like the main beach of Beberibe, right? So this is where I would pick as my second option, right? And as you can see, like they have beautiful, amazing landscapes. It's just like paradise to me. People over there, they are so nice. I mean, they're amazing people, and it's just like a place in which I really like to be. So I stay a lot of my time in this beach of Morro Branco, okay, beach of Morro Branco. And as you can see over here, is it located in the city of Beberibe in the state of Ceará. So these are my top two choices. Third choice, believe it or not, maybe it could be like, for this particular stage in my life, I think Brasilia. Brasilia, it does offer a really nice combination of, like conveniences. You can find whatever you want in Brasilia. But at the same time, it does have like a slower pace, which is kind of counterintuitive, being that this is the political center of Brazil. But different from Washington D.C., Brasilia was actually created from the scratch. This was created by design, so they basically took an area in Brazil where there was nothing, and they created the city over there. So even though the city has been growing for the last several decades, the pace of life, particularly from Friday to Monday, is just like, in my opinion, right, is just like a small town out of nowhere, right? And then from Tuesday to Thursday, that's the peak of the city when most of the Congress people, they are back in Brasilia, and of course naturally you have a bunch of people who are going to come to meet with the Congress people, and then Brasilia gets busier. But even like that is still nothing compared to like Rio de Janeiro, São Paulo. So it's such a nice combination. I really like Brasilia. So these would be my three picks: Rio de Janeiro, Beberibe in state of Ceará, and Brasilia as my third option. All right, that was an interesting question. Really nice question, Yuri. All right, let's see. Ivan is sharing. Nice Sweden. I own real estate in Senador Canedo. I visit Goiânia and Canedo every year. Beautiful places to visit. Look at that, Ivan. So you are almost like a local, I guess, right? All right. William Frost, is your birthday? That future is also on X. Thank you, Ivan. Enjoy. Yokota Strong. Welcome, Yokota. Nice to see you over here. Yes, first time, I can tell, and I hope it's just the first out of many. First time watching your channel from Texas. My husband and I are considering Brazil and Portugal. We've been to Portugal once and plan to visit Brazil this year. Yeah, Yokota, there you go. Like, we work with both countries. My family actually lives in Portugal, right? Like, I mean, I was born in Brazil, born and raised in Brazil. But my remaining family, right? Nowadays I have, from my inner family, I have my mother and my sister. I have, a nephew and a niece in Lisbon, Portugal. And I have a brother still in Brazil, right? And myself. So we're pretty active in both countries. And even though you're gonna be experiencing like the Portuguese culture in both, of course, like Brazil was colonized by Portugal, they are substantially different, Yokota. So Portugal, again, very small country. Basically in a 3-hour drive, you can reach any part of the country as long as you are, let's say, in Lisbon, which is more of a central location. Extremely safe. Portugal is extremely safe, right? Like, I mean, it's probably one of the top 5, if not top 5, top 10 safest cities in the globe. And there is that, right? Like, food is amazing as well. I think food in Portugal is even better than in Brazil. Cost of living comparable, believe it or not. Like Portugal, you are in Europe. Still, cost of living, in my opinion, is the same, kind of the same, roughly, that you're gonna see in Brazil. And if you are in fancy areas of Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo, guess what? Maybe you're gonna be paying even more than what you would be paying in Lisbon, Coimbra, Porto. So Portugal is a very unique combination of upsides, right? And Brazil, again, I want to be. I don't want to sugarcoat reality. Brazil is not nearly as safe as Portugal is. I don't think I need to expand a lot on that front. But Brazil is a huge country, right? So if you by getting Portugal, you get access to 26 other countries of the European Union, meaning you have, you can basically just, rent a car. You go to Spain. There is not even a check, right? Like when you drive from Portugal to Spain, like, I mean, you cannot even tell if you not pay attention, because if you pay attention, usually there is, like a sign saying, all right, you are arriving in Spain. But if you not pay attention, sometimes like when I pick a different road, like, to go to a different city in Spain or of Portugal, I cannot tell. Like, I mean, all of a sudden I start to read things in Spanish and I say, oh, all right, we are in Spain now. So this is the Portuguese experience, right? Now, Brazil, again, you don't have access to 26 countries, but you have access to even more in terms of land, of different landscapes, of different experiences. And it is just such a joyful culture, right? Like, I mean, you don't find this joy in the Portuguese society. Portuguese society is more like old-fashioned, is more conservative. Nothing wrong with the Portuguese society. It's just different, right? Like, you don't see carnival, right? The carnaval, the Brazilian Mardi Gras. Like, I mean, you don't see such a thing in Portugal. And in Brazil, everything is a reason for us to celebrate, a really bright outlook of life in Brazil. So cultures, even though you're going to be listening to Portuguese, all day long, despite the huge presence of foreign citizens in Portugal, Portuguese remains like the main language. And the same thing in Brazil, of course, like we speak Portuguese, don't speak Spanish. I'm sure you know about that. But the culture is so different, right? Like, I mean, it couldn't be more different. Food-wise, you also have a great time in Brazil, amazing food. In Portugal is more consistent, right? Like in Brazil, maybe because of the variety of places, like you can find, thousands of restaurants just in São Paulo alone. And I'm sure we have more restaurants in São Paulo than you have in the entire country. In the entire country of Portugal. And I'm not talking about São Paulo state. I'm talking about the city of São Paulo, right? So because of this range, sometimes, food in Brazil is going to be more a hit or a miss. But in Portugal, for those restaurants out there, like quality is pretty consistent, in my opinion. That's something that draws my attention. All right, Yokota. So just sharing some insights, because you're considering Brazil and Portugal, and such an interesting combination. All right, Dragon, you prefer that we get our CPF prior to arriving. I think I heard that in a previous stream. I will have to travel to Milan for that. Do I apply for the RNM in or out of Brazil? Dragon, don't forget, I think I told you about that. If you hire our service for the digital nomad, we're going to get you the CPF. No extra cost, right? So don't worry about the CPF. I meant when I said, if you're going to hire us, you sit back and relax. We get the CPF on your behalf, right? We do the legwork. We have our team member who's specializing in CPFs. And we don't do that as a standalone service. Very common for people to say, well, I'm going to do this and that, but, right now I just need the CPF. Can you help? And we say, no, we cannot, because we are not supposed to get CPF for everyone, right? We can get you a CPF if you're using another service, because then we have a reason to explain to the Brazilian Revenue Service why we are getting a CPF. We say, listen, we're getting Dragon a CPF because he's applying for the digital nomad residency. And then Brazilian Revenue is going to give us a thumbs up. Now, if you just tell me, well, I'm going to need a CPF because I'm going to buy property, but I'm not going to buy with you, I cannot vouch to the Brazilian Revenue Service that you're buying the property, because you're not hiring me to do that service, right? So, Dragon, yes, if you're not using our services, my recommendation is for you to get the CPF through the consulate. But if you're using our service, that's something that we always provide, whether you are, applying for residency, whether you're buying, a property. We like to do that, all right? We like to help as much as we can. All right, your quota, does your estate in Cabo Frio count for the 140 140,000. Here I see an R before the 140, but I assume it's actually US dollars, right, Yokota? It should be USD. Investment visa, or would that be in the, again, USD 2100 category? So Cabo Frio is not, like the way it works, Yokota. The 1 million reais, roughly $200,000, is going to be in most of the country, okay? And then there's going to be a reduced amount for only the north and the northeast. And Cabo Frio is in Rio de Janeiro, right? So it means like southeast of the country, and therefore there would be the 200,000 US dollars category. All right, Yokota. So let's take a look here, just to illustrate this point. Let's take a look at Cabo Frio, so you can see how close it is to, Rio de Janeiro, right? So here you see state of Rio de Janeiro, that's Cabo Frio, Búzios, right? Rio de Janeiro is over here. So a short trip, it depends on traffic, right? How much long it's going to take you. Now let's continue, and you're going to see that Rio de Janeiro is in the southeast of the country, right? And the areas that are going to qualify for the reduced amount, they are going to be those states here in the north of the country and the northeast, okay? So there you go. All right. I see we are running out of time. I'm going to take an additional couple of questions or comments. And don't forget, I was showing to you guys how you can, basically schedule your participation for our next YouTube session. For those of you who were not here before, I'm going to show real quick how you can do that, because then you're not going to miss our streams anymore. You just type Oliveira Lawyers on YouTube. You're going to find our channel. You click on our channel. You go to this tab. You see this tab, Live. You click on the tab Live. And then to the left side, the first thumbnail, you're going to see notification. You're just going to click on Notify Me, right? Once you click on Notify Me, you are asking YouTube to notify you when the live stream is starting. So that's pretty helpful for you guys, to come back to our live stream without having to add it to your calendar. Of course, if you want to add it to your calendar, you can do so. But just a heads up, we're not going to have a live stream on this Sunday, but we're going to have on next Wednesday. All right. Okay, Yuri, thank you for the recommendations. I'm going to stay in Fortaleza for a month after Rio. Excited. So is that just a coincidence, Yuri? Because it's just like you following my recommendations, right? First Rio de Janeiro, and then, like Beberibe and Fortaleza. They are just so close to each other, right? Let me show you Beberibe, because if you wanna spend a day like in our pousada, right? Like we have a participation in a pousada. Let me show you Beberibe. The city of Beberibe is a 1 hour drive, right? Like again, in my case, it takes me like an hour and a half. But Beberibe is like 1 hour from Fortaleza, right? So you see here is Fortaleza, and this is Beberibe, okay? This is Beberibe. That's where we have the Pousada Jurema Branca. All right, that's the Pousada we have over there. If you guys want to try, you are welcome to do so. Just mention you attend our live stream, and we're going to get you a price break. And my suggestion is, first you ask about the full price, right? You ask for a discounted price, you hear what they say, and then after you have the best price you can get, then you say, well, but I'm actually a follower of the Oliveira Lawyers channel, and I go to Luciano's live stream, and I need an additional discount. And guess what? They are going to give you. So that's my trip. That's Pousada Jurema Branca. Pretty amazing place. Pretty unique place. The units over there, they have like, either a private pool or a private jacuzzi. I'm sure you guys would have a blast over there. All right, here is the tip. And that's it for today. I appreciate all of you who came. And if you haven't done so, if you could please like our live stream so other people can find it. And, I hope to see you on next Wednesday. And all of you have a blessed rest of your day.